Good evening, good evening, good evening. Sending out that notification. We'll kick off in about a minute or so. Again, good evening. Hopefully you can hear me. I never really think about those things, but when I watch other people's broadcasts, they always, can you hear me? I assume you can hear me. Or you would say, I can't hear you. So we'll kick off. I'll give it another little bit here. Let me get it open on the laptop. That way I may be able to respond to some if possible. Alrighty. You've seen the write-up here, so I like to post it sometimes ahead in advance, but I like to post it so you can get an idea what we're going to talk about each week. If you've missed any of the previous 2 months worth of broadcasts, 2.5 months worth of broadcasts, they're now uploaded on my business YouTube channel, Victory in Christ broadcast channel. For those who may not be Christian, don't be alarmed. Easy to find. Just and I'll put the link up here after we're done for this evening. But tonight, let's chat. We said a lot of things about community and looked at different topics, and we won't even try to review all of that. I want to get more precise, more specific to us as individual people. And of course, what better way to kick off 2021 than to talk about emotion? Who knew we'd be having this topic after what happened yesterday? I had already picked the topic days and days ago, last week actually. But hey, just these things sometimes fall into place because yesterday, the last few days have been filled with, the last year or so, let's just be honest, has been filled with a ton of emotion. And some would suggest that what we saw yesterday, or what many of you may have seen, I caught briefly at the Capitol, was an outpouring of emotion. At least that would be our initial and general view, that was emotions going wow. But let's have a talk. Let's have a discussion, and let's see if that is necessarily the case. Should we be so quick to call that an emotional thing that happened, that we saw, and that we've been seeing most of our lives? And those of you who know what your personal experiences are, you may have made some decisions and choices and blamed your emotions for it, etc. I don't know. I don't know you. I don't know all of you. I know a handful of you pretty well, and then I know some of you kind of okay, and then some, pretty much acquaintance at this point. So the emotion, by definition, I like to do this because we like to have some sense of direction from Merriam and Webster's dictionary. Of course, it has a few definitions, but I'll give you one I think that kind of gets to the point. A conscious mental reaction, such as anger or fear, a conscious mental reaction, such as anger or fear, subjectively experienced as strong feelings. So a conscious mental reaction, subjectively experienced as strong feelings, usually directed toward a specific object and typically accompanied by, watch this, physiological and behavioral changes in the body. Let me do that again, because I don't know if we really realize this. A conscious mental reaction, subjectively experienced as strong feelings, usually directed, watch this, usually directed toward a specific object. Object could be a person, place, thing, whatever, a noun, object, and typically accompanied by physiological and behavioral changes in the body. Watch this. Not done yet. All right. So according to ScienceDaily.com, an article posted in 2012, here's what it says. Emotions are characterized by the activity of multiple areas of the brain. The neocortex, brainstem, and the almond-shaped region in the limbic system called the amygdala, I'm not a doctor here, amygdala, Together, these components form a complex network of neural circuits whose detained structure and function are not yet understood. And that's from the ScienceDaily.com. I could go back to old textbooks, but I don't have them anymore. It's what happens when you move across the country 15,000 times. My old psychology textbooks breaks it down way better than any of that I just read. But I'm doing that for an obvious reason. Because when we say, oh, I'm just being emotional, or that's an emotional reaction, well, in a real way, yes, but when we say reaction, we're typically talking about the physical expression. We're talking about the physical expression. When we say emotions, we're talking about the physical expression. No matter what the emotion, we'll get into specific emotions over the next few weeks. But when we usually say emotion, and in particular the emotional expressions that we have a need to explain or justify, like the need to justify angry expressions, or the need to justify frustration, or the need to justify the expression of being pensive or nervous. Anytime we start getting into those emotions and the need to justify it, we typically turn our justification towards what we do with this, what we do with our bodies. But I want to take us, as would be my custom, deeper than that. I want us to think about our emotions from a standpoint of what happens in our brain. As a matter of fact, that the emotion that we eventually experience here is started or launched or takes its foundations from what happens in our brain. Wow. That puts a different view on it, doesn't it? So when we're judging somebody's emotional expression, we have to understand we're judging their brain activity. Just trying to help us. That's all Thursdays is about. Just trying to help us think a little deeper. Just trying to help us develop and be fuller in our own understandings of ourselves, let alone the understanding of the people in our communities. Now, in our write-up, which I didn't want to try to type all that, the cell phone I use is not friendly for my big fingers, so I'll just read it. Here's what we posted as the write-up to this particular discussion on today. We launch into, is that sentence number 2? We launch into number 3, technically. We launch into the new year with a hot button word, emotions. This word is used with extraordinarily high frequency with assumed shared meaning. But what does it mean denotatively? In other words, from a definition, a dictionary, How should we see the term itself in our common use dialogues, or even talking to ourselves, occurring within our communities and the society at large? But before we look closely at individual emotions in the coming weeks, let's try and understand what they are in total. Do we actually understand what we mean when we say the word emotion, or emotions, or feelings, or I'm being emotional? Do we really get it? Or are we just using a phrase with ourselves and with others in our communities? Again, we're not here to define community for you. Are you using a word, or are people using a word at you notice how I said that, are people calling you emotional and using that word, assuming that there is a shared meaning, that there is an agreeable meaning. I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but I've had somebody call me emotional, and that actually did stir up emotions because I know they were using the word in a derogatory way. In other words, in my community, with that in my communication with that individual within my community, I know we didn't have a shared meaning. I know in the way that they use that word, we weren't seeing that word the same way. Yeah, we deep already. We ain't got to go deep, we deep. So a lot of times, women in particular, women are just emotional. What does that mean? So women find themselves, in general, saying, men are too. Well, if we look at emotion as simply, let's see, a conscious mental reaction, subjectively experienced as strong feelings, usually directed toward a specific object and typically accompanied by physiological and behavioral changes in the body. In fact, we are all emotional. I'll let you chew on that. I know that's a lot right there. The actual reality, according to the definition, in fact, we are all emotional. By definition, conscious mental reaction, subjectively experienced as strong feelings. We all have physiological behavioral changes behind things that are said or done or that are experienced. I'll just say it that way. We all do. We all do. Men, women, boys, girls, every race, every creed, every color. We are all in our basic presentation. Even animals are emotional, as we know. You hear them yelping, whining, crying. Creatures are emotional. Now, if you so happen to be a Christian, this shouldn't be shocking to you. Shouldn't be. There's a passage in Hebrews that says something to the effect, we have not a high priest who cannot be touched by the feeling of our infirmities. Anger, have the emotional expression or have the emotional changes, the biochemistry, the brain activity of anger. But don't sin, which means the Bible says that emotions are natural. Now, if you're not a believer, okay, that's your business, but I'm just telling you a major source of information, particularly for those who are believers in Jesus Christ, is the Bible. And I get the sneaky suspicion there are Christians who might be watching this who don't even realize that the Bible actually segregates the emotional biochemical changes of emotion from action. Woo! Because emotion is the mental reaction, the brain reacting to the stimulus or the brain reacting to the subjective experiences to what the body, the mind, the ears, the senses is experiencing. Believe it or not, your emotional reaction is that. It is the reaction to what's stimulating you. That does not preclude what you do behind your emotion. Let me do that one again. Let me do it again. Having an emotion is the reaction to the situation. So being angry a lot of times is a natural reaction to the stimulus. It's a natural reaction to what's going on. Anger is not the issue. Sadness is not the issue. Happiness is not the issue. The emotion itself is actually not the issue. The emotional reaction is a natural thing. So how did emotions in general get shifted to the thing itself? That's a great question. I don't know if we can really answer that here. Somebody venture a guess? When did emotion become the evil thing? When did something that is natural on the inside of us become the thing that's bad? So if something, I'm working on something and it's not working out, frustration is a natural reaction to my inability to get it done. Someone is speaking inappropriately to me or to my son or to someone in my community with whom I have an affection and relationship with. And so anger is a natural emotional reaction to the stimulus of someone cussing me out. I haven't done anything in terms of me to them. Hope you get what I'm doing. I'm trying to separate for us, maybe for somebody the first time in your life. Maybe you've never thought about the emotion separate from your reaction. Because you've never seen emotion as the reaction. You've never heard somebody tell you the truth, which is that the emotion is the reaction, the internal, mental, physiological reaction. Emotion is actually the thing that your body is built to do. Your brain is built to cause things to happen on the inside because you're a human being. And if you don't have emotions or you don't have an emotional reaction, some suggest you are callous, you are even dead. Dead people don't have emotional reactions because they are dead. People who are comatose, people who are in comas. But even in certain studies, they have shown that people even in comas can react. Didn't know that, did you? There are certain stimuluses that can happen. A mother's voice speaking to a daughter or son in a coma, there can be a smile, a reaction. When you are asleep, that there can be some reaction to hearing a sweet sound or smelling a sweet scent. There can be some actual biochemical reaction, some brain activity. Show me some emotion. Basically, it's saying, get that brain working. Get that brain working. Basically. But most of us don't know that. Most of us have never been told that the emotional changes are actually natural. So let me say this, because this is some of the things I love to do. Stop working so hard not to be emotional. You're working too hard. I know people right today, that's what you say when I was a kid, right today, who are almost killing themselves trying not to have natural, internal biochemistry brain reactions called emotions. Emotions are not your enemy. Emotions are not, listen to me, emotions are not our enemy. We are all, men and women, emotional creatures. Emotions are necessary. You need emotions. You need them. Without them, you cannot connect to your children. Without them, you cannot connect to your spouse. Without them, you have no viable connections to anybody at all, ever. It makes no sense for us to keep pounding ourselves because we want to be connected, and we were built, I would say by God, to be connected. So how are we connected? Mental assent? No. A thought about you. Oh, I'm going to get in trouble. Ready? Me thinking about you does not connect me to you. Think for a second. Just me going, Gabe. That doesn't do anything. It doesn't connect me. How many Gabes exist on the planet? How many Johns? My brother's name is John. How many Johnnies? My dad's name is Johnny. How many Patricias? My mom's name is Patricia. How many Patricias? How many Johnnies? How many Johns? How many Catherines? But there's something about that particular Johnny, John, Catherine. There's something about that particular Gabriel Patrick. That's my son. There's something specific about them. Wait, what is that? The affection, the emotion that even their names and thoughts of them cause. If I don't have emotion, then I am not connected to John, to Catherine, to Johnny, to Patricia, to Gabriel Patrick. Emotions are necessary. I just freed about 100 people right there. Y'all should be sharing this out. Watch party. Get this out to the people on your Facebook page, because somebody needs to know that emotions are necessary. They're absolutely, positively necessary. As a matter of fact, they are germane to our very existence. There are no people, unless they are dead or comatose, who are operating in this life without them. Because emotions originate inside. They cannot be seen. Emotions are not tears. Tears can be cried for anger. Tears can be cried for happiness. Tears can be cried for sadness. You going somewhere with that, right, Gabe? Absolutely. It's the interpretation. It is the self-interpretation of emotions, and it is the community interpretation of emotions that actually are the issue. I just put my foot so deep in it, I might as well jump all the way in. So we know emotions are not the issue. We were created, and I would say by God, to have them. We were created to have them and the range of them. We'll get into those things specifically over the weeks. Stay posted. But the issue ultimately with emotions in general is self-interpretation. Taking a note, write that down. So the first issue is self-interpretation. How was I taught? Here's the question. How was I taught to read my own emotional changes? How was I taught to see myself in light of the emotional reactions to the things happening outside of me? Woo, that's a powerful question. And the next question is, how was I taught to see others in their emotional changes? How was I taught to respond to others when I see what I think are emotional changes? When I see the expression of the emotional changes happening on the inside, what was I taught to think or to do or how to respond to what I am seeing? Wow. There's no way in the world we're going to finish that in the next 30-something minutes. I'm just telling you now. So I just want us to think about it. Those are the two questions. How have I been I'm going on 47 years old in a month and a half. And over these 47 years, how was I taught? By my parents, by those in my community that I was modeling. Woo, I said something right there. Think about it for those of you who are parents. Think about it for a second. Don't pick an emotion. Just think about the emotions of your children. The emotional expression of your children. I'm going to just get I told you I'm going to swim in it. I'm going to swim in it tonight. So think about the emotional expression of your children, of your grandchildren. Have you ever stopped to think about what you modeled to them in terms of your anger, your sadness, your joy, your happiness? Did you ever stop to think about what you were modeling in terms of your reaction to their emotional changes? Did you ever stop to ask yourself, why am I doing this when they do that? When they go like this, why do I go like this? When they do this, why do I do this? Why am I responding to their what appears to be their emotional reactions to the things that they're experiencing? Why am I doing that even myself? Why am I responding? Now, you can't go back. Most of you probably have grown children. So you can't go back and change any of that. I have an 11-year-old. I can do that. But now think about in your community, why do you respond to your own emotional changes? Oh my goodness. Woo. Why do you get mad at yourself when you get mad? Why do you get frustrated with you when you get frustrated? Why do you talk yourself out of the joy that is being expressed behind something good happening in your life? Why do you do that? Oh, I know you do. I've had conversations with several of you. I have literally talked to some of you, and I've noticed that you'll have something happen in your life that creates the emotion, or it causes the brain changes that lead to an expression of joy, and then you'll start talking yourself out of the joy expression. Come on. Somebody talk to me. This is a conversation. You either know somebody who does it, or you might do it yourself. You will be happy because you got a promotion, and by the time you get through saying promotion, you're already having the emotional change in your head. Yeah, but I'm gonna have to pay more taxes. All that did was raise my tax bracket. Woo, and then I'm gonna have to go over there, and I'm gonna have to do, and a promotion, they didn't even give me as much as they gave Sally Sue. You went from, oh man, this is happy, this is joy, this is something to be excited about, to the feelings or the emotions of being lifted, and then began to negate your own emotional expression, joyous expression, with talking down, bringing it down. Have you ever stopped to think? I'm just going to keep asking. I just want us to think about this. Have you ever stopped to think about how you see yourself as an emotional being? I'm not talking about the expression. See, don't do that. When I say emotion or emotional, we immediately go expression. But I've told you via definitions that that is not the case. And for those who just joined us, go back to the beginning and you will learn that emotion actually begins in the brain. Again, emotions are characterized by the activity of multiple areas of the brain. Emotions are ultimately the reaction, the internal reaction to typically external stimuli. In other words, something causes my brain to fire and send off endorphins and all of those things. We'll get into that as time goes, and causes me to have an reaction, a strong feeling. You know why they use the word feeling? Because literally you feel something. That's why the word, because you actually have internal feelings. And I mean biological. I don't mean excuse the term non-corporeal, but disembodied reactions. No, you actually have physical changes when you get excited, or when you get angry, or when you get sad. You have physical changes. For example, when you're sad, it causes your face to drop. You don't keep smiling when you're sad. And if you do, people know that that's not a true smile. So believe it or not, you actually have a feeling. You have a drop sometimes a drop in brain activity. You have an increase in brain. You have actual biological, physiological changes that happen when which is what we call a feeling or an emotion. We've already covered that. So then my question again is, have you ever stopped to think about why you interpret the changes, the feelings, the actual feelings, the changes in your body how you stoop down when you're sad and embarrassed and all of that. Have you ever stopped to really examine why you interpret the way you do? Why do you call it anger? Why do you call it frustration? Why do you call it being pensive? Why do you call it being sad? Why? Have you ever stopped to do so? Let me go deeper. What if you were taught to misread the changes within yourself? Think for a second. That's not as deep as it sounds. What if you grew up in an environment where moments that were really should have been anger, and I'm saying that carefully, where, really you should have been uneasy behind something, you were taught to be unfeeling or unexpressive. You were taught that, hey, responding as if it's all good makes sense. So, for example, if you, like me, caught some of the things that happened on the Capitol, your response was, no big deal. Nonchalant, that's an emotion. That would be categorically the inappropriate response to what you saw. Wait, you don't have a right to tell me how I feel? I told you I'm going to get in trouble. Gabe, now you're going too far. You don't have a right. No one has a right to tell another person how they feel or their emotion. Again, most of you don't even realize science and study of anatomy and things has proven that there's not much difference in brain activity between a person being angry and a person being happy. It is the physical expression. It is the physical expression. It's not what's happening in here. It's not what's happening with this in terms of just the pulse racing. People's pulse race when they're angry. People's pulse race when they're happy. So it's not that. It is the choice response. It is the intentional choice response. It is how you choose to react to what you're feeling. It is your, that's why I'm asking the question. How did you come to the point of interpreting to respond with your body, with your mouth? Let's be honest, with our mouths, with our body. Some people respond with the totality of their person. I mean, they can't just think about it. No, they respond with their whole being. Many of us know people like that. Many of us may be that person. We respond with our whole, we don't just get mad. We respond with everything. We slam doors, bam. Punch walls, bam. Why does that person do that? Why does that person determine that what this person is doing, which is causing me to feel something that I'm calling anger, then result in me punching a wall or me slamming a door? Or me raising my voice, or me throwing myself on the ground. Gabe, are you suggesting that we are making choices behind the things that we are feeling? Are you suggesting that we have been conditioned or disciplined or trained to choose to cuss people out? Yeah, a child is not born cussing people out because they have no developed language. So stop saying, what I do. I can't help it. In fact, not only can you help it, but you have been conditioned to cuss people out. You have been conditioned in the environment in which you came along in the community. Woo, you didn't see that coming. You should have known it was coming. Believe it or not, what you are blaming on your emotions is actually to be blamed on your intentionality. It is to be blamed on your will. The fact is, the reason why one may cuss somebody out is because they come from an environment where to cuss someone out was an act of power in the midst of feeling feeling weak. So when I feel weak, I cuss people out so that I can regain some semblance of strength. Woo! That's powerful. That's powerful. So you mean to tell me, Gabe, that I may be cussing people out because I'm actually feeling weak, as opposed to cussing people out as a matter of strength? It is more likely that when we are in positions of vulnerability, some people do what's called lash out. We then, now remember the second question was interpreting other people's what we call emotional responses. Actual fact, isn't it better to think that what we're really doing is interpreting people's intentional reactions to their emotions? So when my husband comes in and he slams the door, I'm intentionally, because I believe he's slamming the door as an act of aggression towards me. So then I'm like, slam the door, don't you slam my door. What are you slamming the door for? That's just immature. Because I'm taking his slamming the door as an act of aggression. Fellas, we ain't no different. She comes in, she's had a rough day, and you say, hey, honey, what's for dinner? Hey, I'm just not feeling it right now. We take those words as an act of aggression. We think she's angry at us. She just had a bad day. But we have been conditioned that if someone we think, we think is already beneath us, we think is weaker than us, we think is less than us, responds in a manner that seems to suggest disrespect. It suggests disrespect. Oh, Gabe, don't you touch that. Because I have a hard, fast rule about what disrespect is. I have a hard, fast rule about what disrespect is. I'm going to get in trouble, but I don't care. If you've ever been in the military, and I know many, many people who have, what do they do on the bus on the way to boot camp? What do they do to you on the way to coming up off that bus? Cuss you out, talk about your mama, talk about your daddy, talk about you, tell you ain't nothing, and a bunch of other words I'm not going to use. Why do they do that? Ask somebody who's been in the military. Because they are reconditioning you. You got to understand that they are trying to see, are you going to be fit to be a soldier, or are you going to go AWOL, or are you going to wash out? And so they come at you, but also because when it's all said and done, you're going to call those brothers and those sisters in the military with you your brothers and sisters. You're going to say, these are the ones who are my true ride and die. You're going to say, those are the ones who will die for me and take a bullet, because like you, they have been conditioned to die and jump in front of the bullet and jump in front of the mortar shell for you. But that starts with being reconditioned. Are you hearing what I'm saying? So they say the most berating, most belittling things to you to recondition you. Because the moment you enlist, you are no longer a civilian, you are a soldier. And there is a certain emotional condition. There's a certain emotional condition that you've got to have that typically when somebody cusses you out, you would swing and punch them in the face. Now you go. And the emotional change that's caused by them cussing you out is controlled at the point of your interaction in your community. In other words, you don't react. You don't take vengeance because you are a soldier and you are under control. Not to stopping the brain from firing when you hear the cuss words being hurled at you. No. That's that. As much as they might think they have that kind of power, they don't have that. But what they do is, at the point of you being aroused emotionally, you still feel fear. You still feel anguish. You still feel frustration. But what they do is condition you at the point of your reaction to your reaction. Now, I'm just using the military as an example. But let me come back to us. Because most of us are not in the military. Obviously, some have been, but most of us have not been. And even then, some who went into the military washed out. They could not handle the reconditioning. They could not handle it. I don't blame them. I don't blame them. You cussing at me, you're talking about my mama, my daddy, and all that. I don't blame them. But we've all had some conditioning. I hope you hear what I'm saying. We've all had and we've all gone through emotional conditioning. We all have. Whether you want to admit it tonight or not, take some time over the next week until we're back again next Thursday to really consider what kind of emotional conditioning you've had. Were you applauded for your natural reaction? You know what I tell my son? When he cries, cry. That's what I tell him. Because that reaction in part, is natural. But I also then begin to speak to him about those tears. I began to speak to him about why those tears are happening and to begin to help him to understand there are times when his natural response would be to cry, but there's going to have to be times when crying is not what you do. So then we use phrases like, you got to toughen up. At some point, he will be a husband and a father, and his children and his wife are going to need him to suck it up. He's still going to feel the urge, the brain releasing, the brain encouraging desire to shed tears. And one might escape from his eyes. But his wife and his children and his siblings and his mother and his father and those in his community may in a particular moment need him to suck it up. And we all, whether we are men or women, speak to me, people, we all need to be conditioned to not just simply have emotional reactions. You know what I love about babies? I'm a psychology major, of course. You know what I love about babies? Because they're so pure. And pure don't mean innocent of having emotion. No, they just don't have anything built in to stop the emotional reaction. So if they're feeling something that's causing them to cry, they cry. If they're feeling something that causes them to be angry, they throw temper tantrums. If they're feeling something that causes them to laugh, it doesn't matter if it's time to be quiet, they laugh. If something causes them to smile, they smile. That is a clean slate. That is a well-developed person who, if you don't do it right, they're going to be all mixed up in there. Heard this before? Mixed emotion. In one sense means you're having a mixture of emotion. You're in one sense feeling relieved, in another sense feeling apprehensive. That's called mixed emotion. We're not talking about that tonight, but that's what that's called. You're having a range of emotion. For example, if you have a loved one, let's say who's 115 years old, so I assume nobody has that, and they are coming to the end of their life, you're feeling a mixed emotion. On one hand, you're relieved that they are passing away because you have watched them hurt all of your life. And on the other hand, you're having a mixed emotion because there's another emotion of, I'm losing my grandma, my grandpa, I'm losing great auntie, I'm losing a loved one. So that's called a mix or a mixture of emotion. But even in those situations, it is, if you notice, I'm not really talking about emotion. Because that's just natural. The issue ultimately with emotion is how we were conditioned to interpret it, and therefore what we do behind our interpretation. So when I'm feeling somebody is cussing at me and I'm feeling a wellspring of emotion, in other words, a feeling something is changing on the inside of me, the real issue as a person in the society, in the community, is what I do. What is my ultimate response? Not that I did not feel that thing. That's natural. That's an appropriate response inside. Now, you may see on the outside, just boom, just solid. But on the inside, I'm about ready to just pop. I'm ready to go. I'm just ready to go off. I can't believe you coming at me this way. I wonder how many marriages have been destroyed because we weren't properly trained on one, understanding that feelings are natural. That feelings, that biochemical brain changes are natural. That men are going to be sad and happy, and they're going to be angry and pensive and frustrated and confused. They're going to feel all these emotions. Have you ever looked at the emojis that are out there now? My God, no, most of us didn't even know that many emotions existed. We didn't even know. Guess what? They do. One of these times, just go through and look at all the different pensive and a dear friend of mine, shout out to Lamar Henderson. Dear brother, great father, awesome husband, man, he's my peeps from California. He said, you know what I found, and just stay with me for a second. He said, you know what I found when it comes to black men, we're not allowed to experience or to express anything but anger and joy, or anger and happiness. And this was many years ago, and I looked at him like, man, you are dead right. Oftentimes in the communities in which black men grow up in and come along in, we are conditioned not to express anything but anger or happiness. Or better stated, not that I can really improve on what he said, in fact, we do express other emotions. We are pensive, we are nervous, we do get frustrated, but it's always either called anger or happiness. We're never allowed to have our emotions be interpreted, not just by the people around us, but even by us. If a grown man, and I can only speak for black men, if a grown black man is crying, we can't help but to wonder, not only what stimulated it, but we start wondering, look, you ain't got to tell me the truth, I'll speak it. Is he weak? Is he weak? Is he weak? And then we're going to force that man. Now, I'm not saying anybody who's watching me, but many men, especially black men, we force them to have to justify, why are you crying? Why are you crying? And you know when we start that? When he's a boy. When he's a boy. When he's a boy. Get up, boy. You ain't hurt. Get up. Get up. There ain't nothing wrong with you. Toughen up, boy. No, his whole left knee cap came off. Something is wrong with him. He's hurting. But he's told, you're not hurting. He's told, there ain't nothing wrong with you. He's already told, repress your natural emotional changes. Woo! You don't get to express. You don't get to. You don't get to, son. You don't get to, man. You don't get to be frustrated. You don't get to be pensive. You don't get to be confused. You don't get to be. Again, I can only speak for what I am. You don't get to be. Now, obviously, 2020, we saw all of this stuff happening. Did we not? And I'm not just speaking for black people no, I'm just speaking in general, but I can only speak about what I am. I am a man who feels a range of emotion. Even though I live in a society that doesn't always want to know that sometimes I'm frustrated, that sometimes I'm not angry, I'm just frustrated by my inability to do something or by my inability to communicate that I need something done. I get frustrated. Sometimes I get pensive. I get nervous. Gabe, you? Yes, me. Yes. I may not express it because I'm not allowed to. And I don't need anybody to DM me and oh, Gabe, I'm praying for you. No, I don't need that. I'll be 47. I don't need that. I'm way past all that. I'm just telling you what my experiences have been all my life. As a black man, as a man, this is the reality. And I am doing my darndest to fight against my own upbringing to give my son the opportunity to feel the range of emotion. I still have a chance with him, but I also have a chance with you. That's why I'm doing this. I want you to know, men and women, my dear Facebook friends, I told you I value you. For others, Facebook is just nothing. It's of no consequence. I don't feel that way. I've never felt that way. You'll never hear me say it. You are important to me. You are important to me. And I want you to know, with me, you have a right to be angry. You have a right to be frustrated, because those are natural responses to the stimulation that you are experiencing in your communities, in your society, even in your own mind. You have a right to your emotional reactions to the things you are experiencing. You don't have to put on airs with me. You don't have to act like it ain't true with me. You get to be who you are on the inside with me. I can't say you can do that with everybody else in your life, but I'm in your community. If you consider me a part of your community, you get to do that with me. And the reason why is because our God, whether you are a Christian or not, I'm telling you, your creator built you to be able to do that. The breaking point or the plumb line is be emotional. You will have reactions, but don't react to the reaction. Don't react to the feeling. Sin. Anger, but sin not, right? So don't justify, well, you said I could be emotional. Yes, you can, because you are. You are a human creature. You are a human being. You will have emotional changes on the inside of you. But how you express that, that's a whole nother broadcast. Even happy emotions can be expressed wrong. Even happy emotions can be expressed in a wrong way. See, the issue isn't the emotion. The issue is the expression. The issue is actually the interpretation, which leads to the expression. It's what I think I'm supposed to do. It's what I think I'm supposed to do with my body and with my mouth. So if I'm not married, but if my wife comes in and she slams the door, I'm supposed to walk up in there, this my house, woman. Don't be slamming my door. What's wrong with you? I'm supposed to do that. I've been conditioned. I have a feeling about hearing the door slam. But that doesn't mean I have to do anything. I could actually just sit here and don't move at all. You didn't see that coming, did you? I'm almost done. I want to leave it right here because I want you to stew in the juices of this one. You may have to watch this about 2 or 3 times to try to really get a handle on what I'm saying. But understand, just because if I was married, my wife come in and she slammed the door, bam. That doesn't mean that even though I'm like, who slammed my door? Now that's what's going on the inside. Slam my door. It doesn't mean that I got to come up out the room, hey, in here slamming doors. What's wrong with you? I don't have to do that. I don't have to storm the Capitol because I don't agree with the election. I don't have to put people's lives in danger because I don't agree with the election. I don't have to kill a young lady laying in her bed because I'm supposedly afraid. Supposedly. I don't have to exact violence or I don't have to gossip behind my family and friends' back because I feel like they're doing that to me. Woo-wee! I don't actually have to do anything just because I'm having some real internal biological mental brain activity and I'm having some changes. I don't have to whoop my kids into oblivion or my grandkids into oblivion just because they raise their voice at me. I don't have to call it quits in my relationship every time the person doesn't jump up and do what I tell them to do in the marriage. I don't have to call it quits every time I get embarrassed in my friendships. I don't have to decide that we're not friends anymore because they didn't want to go with me and they stabbed me in the back. They left me hanging. I thought they were my ride and die. And so now I got to just drop them as friends completely. And never stop to think that maybe they got some stuff going on and maybe I should do a bit of an investigation as to why the door slammed, and I may discover that it wasn't actually anybody who slammed it. It was left open and the wind blew and the wind didn't care that it was my door and the wind slammed it. But if I storm out the room and I go off on the person in my community because I think they did it, now I just caught an emotion in them. And then they have a right, if I take the right of my expression, they have a right to their expression. I got a couple of minutes. Let me put my foot deeper in my mouth. Because here's where relationships in our communities begin to get really difficult. If I have a prescribed reaction to the things that make me mad, make me happy, make me frustrated, etc., I don't give any room for the other person or people in my community. Let me do it again. If I have a prescribed, I'm going to always cuss a person out who does X, Y, Z. If a person does X, Y, Z, I'm going to cuss them out. If a person cuts me off on the freeway, I'm going to catch up to them. We call it road rage, and I'm going to flip them the bird. I'm going to always do that. I'm going to always do that. Do you understand how constricting you're constricting down your community? Do you understand if you have a prescribed physical reaction or something with your mouth, if you say this to me, I'm going to get vengeance on you. I ain't letting nobody get over on me. Do you understand when you say stuff like that, you are writing a check that your butt can't cash? Trust me. Trust me. Because my father used to tell me, Gabe, be careful who you run up on. Because as tough as you may think you are, there's always somebody out there who's tougher than you. It seemed to suggest to me that my reaction to my emotional reaction shouldn't always be absolute, I can't do nothing else but this. If my son doesn't go to bed when I say, which he always does, but if he doesn't go to bed when I say, that means I'm going to have to beat him. I always have to beat him because that's what you do with kids when they disrespect. Even the Bible said that, right? Not exactly. It's not exactly what that means. A rod is made for a fool's back. Telling your child to go to bed and they don't go to bed at the very second you say is not necessarily foolishness. However, if I go in, son, didn't I tell you to go to bed? And he look at me, dude, I'll go to bed when I get ready. That's foolishness. And by definition, now I'm supposed to knock him out. So understand, trying to use scriptures, Christians, stop that nonsense. Trying to justify going off on people or trying to justify what you do because mama used to do that, because mama used to cuss people out. So I'm just being like mama. Generational curses, generational curses. You know, when my daddy used to get mad, mama would get drunk. So, my reaction to my husband is I get drunk, generational curses. You're lying. You're trying to say that you have a prescribed thing you have to do. You are conditioned. You have to cuss somebody out. You have to cut them off on the highway. You have to flip them the bird. You have to fly off the handle. You have to punch the wall. You have to abuse them. You have to hide. You have to retreat. You always do. I always gotta retreat. I always do. I gotta block everybody that don't make me feel good on social media. I gotta block them. My block game is strong. I gotta block. You don't even realize what you're saying about yourself. You are saying that you are in isolation in your interpretation of your emotions. In other words, it's not altogether your fault. Somebody didn't teach you how to simply be emotional or have an emotional reaction and understand the reaction that you're having, so then you can choose how you react with your body and your mouth. You can choose what you do. You can choose that. Listen, can I free somebody right now? Let me talk directly to you. You can choose how you respond to your emotions. You can choose it. Sir, don't hit your wife anymore. Ma'am, don't cuss your children out anymore. Boss, don't berate your employees anymore. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do that, ma'am. You don't have to do that, sir. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do it. Stop. I'll never be in a relationship, Gabe, because I just got stuff that I'm dealing with. I just got stuff. Yeah, you got stuff that's causing emotions. But it doesn't mean that you have to have that reaction to your emotion. You don't have to just break up with your boyfriend immediately because he didn't let you see his phone because he was getting ready to do something with it, and you jump to the conclusion that I just don't have trust. I feel like distrust is in the relationship, so I'm done with you. You don't want to let me see your phone? Get out. That's not emotions causing that. That's a misinterpretation of the emotion you're feeling. What you really need to do is talk to somebody like me or your pastor or a counselor as to why you're dealing with such issues of distrust and jealousy. You need to get that dealt with because there's a book that says jealousy is as cruel as the grave. Don't blame somebody for your jealousy. I don't care who stimulated it. Ultimately, you're having an emotional reaction and then you're having a conscious reaction to the emotion. I hope I'm saying that clearly. I'm trying to drive it home to you. Don't stop at the emotional reaction like you're a child and you just have to just blah. It just comes out of you. They made me mad. Blah. They made me sad. Blah. No, you don't have to do that. You don't have to throw up on them your whatever's happening on the inside of you. You can process. You can process. You can process. You can think about why you're feeling that way and then choose what you want to do. You can do it. I believe in you. I believe in you. Ma'am, sir, I believe in you. Brother, sister, I believe in you. My Facebook road dogs, I believe in you. I believe that you can. I don't care how old you are. I don't care how many times you've made the mistake. I don't care how many times you had to apologize. Apologize, and let's start responding to our emotions differently. In 2021, I'm 1 minute over time. I hope this has been a benefit. I hope you've gained something. It's a little deep, but go back through it. Listen to what I'm saying. 2 questions, remember? How am I interpreting? How am I handling? How am I thinking about my own issues? How am I engaging me behind my emotional reactions to my issues? And then question number 2, how am I interpreting how others are doing it? And if you got children and you got grandchildren and you're married, woo, you might want to get on this tonight. And if you feel like you got very healthy responses to your spouse, to your children, to your grandchildren, some of the most intimate relationships most of us have, if you work a lot, you're a workaholic, and you're around your coworkers all the time, then you need to really do your homework. Answer these questions for yourself. How are you in your interpretation of your own emotion and the emotional expression as you see it of others? Said it, did it, done it, good. We're going to be dealing with individual emotions. But I think I've already laid a good foundation. So when we start talking about anger, and we start talking about fear, when we start talking about frustration, hopefully you will be able to pull on what you're hearing tonight and it will help make sense. Fear is a healthy thing. Anger is a healthy thing. Frustration is a healthy thing. Gabe, are you kidding me? No. I'm out on a strong branch. I'm not even on a limb. I'm on a branch. All those things are natural. Yeah, but the Bible says, don't fear. The spirit of fear. Most of us don't even understand what Paul was saying. Because Paul also admits in 1 Corinthians chapter 3 that he was afraid. What? He told Timothy, God has not given us the spirit, the disposition of fear. In other words, we are not built to live in fear all the time. But reacting to a frightful situation with fear is natural. See the difference? A spirit of fear, another way of saying a spirit of fear is a disposition of fear. In other words, a phobia. God has not given us a phobia. He has not made us phobic. He has not made us phobic or frightful. But on the same token, it's natural in situations to have a brain physiological biochemical change that alerts you to the fact that this is something to be afraid of. This is something to be apprehensive about. Two different things. Some of you have never heard that before. And I pray that it will help you. All right, I'm done. Till next week, same time, we'll chat again. I hope to see you. Till then, have a great one.